Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we will talk about deployment. So deployment is the main component of AKS cluster. So we will understand how pods and deployment work together. So let's get started. A deployment used to define the desired state of your application in AKS. It manages the life cycle of your pods by ensuring that specified number of pods replica are running at all the time and are in healthy state. So what deployment specify? So deployment specify the number of replica, then what container image to use. It contain configuration for the container. Also it contain networking configuration where we can expose the port, and we will define a rollout and update strategy in the deployment. Pods and deployment connection. So deployment manage a replica set. When you create deployment, Kubernetes automatically create a replica set. Pod is the smallest deployable unit in Kubernetes, which contain one or more containers running your application. Replica set created by the deployment manage the pod and ensure they match the desired state defined in the deployment configuration, or you can say deployment YAML. Lifecycle of pod. If pods managed by deployment fails or is deleted, the deployment will create a new pod and maintain the desired number of replicas. During the update, the deployment gradually replaces old pod with new ones according to the rollout strategy. How pods are configured by deployment. So if you can see, we have a one of the sample YAML file for deployment. Pods configurations come with the spec section in the deployment. So if you can see, we have a this is the YAML file. Kind is deployment. It means in this is belongs to deployment. Under the spec, we have a replica 3. It means we specify that we need a 3 pod replicas which should be running every time. Selector. Selector will define how the deployment identify which pod it manage. Selector act as a matchmaker where we can define how the deployment identify which pod it manage. It links the deployment to the pods by using label. Here we have a label called app, my app. This deployment is belongs to app, my app pod. Template. So under the template, if you can see, template describe the pods configuration such as container image. Like here we have an image version is my app 1.0. Also it contain container port, and container port is 80. So it will ensure that container knows where to listen the request. Label, as we say, this help to categorize the pod. What happen when you apply deployment? Kubernetes create a replica set based on the deployment instruction. With this deployment replica set, it will create a 3 pods. It will make sure that those always up and running, and all pods will run with the container image which is my app 1.0. Also it will listen on the port 80. All pod will listen on port 80 and carry the label called my app. So basically Kubernetes automatically spin up the replacement of pod, and it will get similar configuration for new pod whenever it gets deployed. Selector act as the address or filter. Without this, without selector, deployment will not understand or which pods to deploy. Let's say you have a 4 pods, and out of 4 you have a 3 pods label called my app, and for fourth pod you have a different label. Your deployment selector is defined as my app, then deployment will recognize and manage only first three pod because they have label my app. Pod 4 will not include because its label does not match to this deployment. I would say for the selector is like search query. It tells the deployment which pods look after. Also it matches the pod using their labels. So roll up replica set. So when you create a deployment, it automatically manage replica set, which will ensure that number of pods running all the time as we discussed. Replica set act as a middle layer between the deployment and the pods. These pods are continuously monitored. If anything goes wrong, replica set will create a new replacement of the pod. As we say, the deployment define label and selector in its configuration. These labels are applied to pods through the template in the deployment. Replica set use these label to track and manage the pod. Here how the connection works. Deployment create and manages replica set. Replica set ensure desired number of pods should get be running. So this is what we have for deployment. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to share and subscribe our channel.